If you think loyalty has limits, wait until you hear what this K9 was protecting in the middle of nowhere. It started with a call that nobody wanted to answer. 3 in the morning, October cold biting through everything, and dispatch crackling with static. Possible animal disturbance near Oakwood Cemetery. Resident reports continuous barking. Been going for hours. Officer Sarah Mitchell grabbed her thermal jacket without thinking twice. 12 years on the force, 8 of them working with K9 units. She'd heard every kind of bark: aggressive, playful, territorial, afraid. But when she pulled up to the edge of those woods, engine idling in the pre-dawn darkness, what she heard made her blood run cold. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't fear. It was desperation. The sound cut through the October air like a blade, sharp, relentless, almost human in its urgency. Not the bark of a dog chasing deer or defending territory. This was something primal, a plea wrapped in fury. Sarah killed the engine, grabbed her flashlight. The beam carved a thin path through pine trees that seemed to swallow all light. Fog rolled between the trunks like something alive, turning every shadow into a potential threat. "Animal control, this is Mitchell," she radioed. "I'm going in on foot." "Stand by." The barking grew louder with every step, closer, more frantic. Then it stopped. Complete silence. Not even whine through the branches. Just Sarah's breath forming clouds in the freezing air and the crunch of dead leaves under her boots. She swept the flashlight left, right. Nothing but trees and darkness and that awful quiet that follows something terrible. Then she saw the eyes. 2 amber coins floating in the black, 30 feet ahead, unmoving, watching her with an intensity that made her hand drift toward her weapon. "Easy," she called out, voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm not here to hurt you." The eyes blinked once, twice. Then the barking exploded again, not at her, but behind the animal, deeper in the woods. A warning, a command, stay back. Sarah had worked with enough K9 South to read body language in the dark. This dog wasn't attacking. It was defending. She moved closer, slow flashlight, lowered to seem less threatening. The beam caught the animal's profile and her stomach dropped. German Shepherd, or what was left of one. Ribs pressing against matted fur like piano keys, legs trembling with exhaustion. Muzzle scarred, one ear torn nearly in half. The kind of damage that didn't come from wandering alone in the woods. This dog had been through hell and made it back. But what stopped Sarah's breath entirely was the vest. Torn, filthy, barely recognizable under mud and blood, but unmistakable. AK-9 unit tactical vest. Numbers still visible on the side. K9 to 247. "Jesus," she whispered. "You're one of ours." Police dogs didn't just disappear. They were tracked, microchipped, accounted for every single day. If this dog was out here, something had gone catastrophically wrong. She accessed the database on her phone with shaking fingers. K9 to 247, German Shepherd. Name: Sergeant. Reported missing 3 weeks ago after a vehicle accident during a rural pursuit. Handler: Officer Marcus Chun. Status: presumed dead, but here he was, alive, barely, and refusing to move. Sarah took another step forward. Sergeant's bark turned into a low, guttural growl, not aggressive, but warning. "Don't come closer, not yet." "What are you protecting, boy?" she asked softly. That's when she heard it, faint, almost imaginary. A sound so out of place in these woods that her mind rejected it at first. A cry, not an animal, not wind through hollow trees. A baby. Sarah's training evaporated. She broke into a run, flashlight wild. Sergeant barking beside her now instead of at her like he'd been waiting for someone to finally understand. They crashed through undergrowth together, branches whipping her face, until the flashlight beam found something that didn't belong. A bundle, wrapped in what might have once been a blanket, now soaked through with dew and dirt. Tucked against the base of an old oak tree like an offering left for the forest itself, and curled around it, body forming a living shield against the October cold, was the starving K9 who should have been dead 3 weeks ago. Sergeant looked up at her with eyes that held more humanity than most people she'd arrested. Then he, so carefully, stepped aside. Sarah dropped to her knees, pulled back the blanket with trembling hands. A baby, maybe 6 months old, blue lips, skin like ice, but still breathing. "Dispatch," Sarah's voice cracked over the radio. I need paramedics at Oakwood Cemetery Woods. Eastern Trail, about half a mile in. I've got an infant, severe hypothermia, and... She looked at Sergeant, who had collapsed beside the tree, finally allowing himself to stop, and the K9 who just saved a life. The response was immediate, frantic. Questions she couldn't answer yet. How long had the baby been out here? Who left it? Why? But all Sarah could focus on was the dog. Sergeant hadn't moved since stepping aside. He lay on his side now, flanks heaving, eyes half closed. She could count every rib, see infection in that torn ear. Watch his legs twitch with exhaustion that went bone deep. "Stay with me," she whispered, reaching out slowly. This time he didn't growl. Let her hand rest on his head. "You did it, Sergeant. You can rest now." But even as his eyes started to close, one paw remained extended, touching the blanket, still protecting. Even now. In the distance, sirens began their climb through the darkness. The ambulance lights turned the forest into a strobing nightmare of red and blue. Paramedics swarmed the clearing like urgent ghosts, their movements practiced and precise. Sarah watched them work on the baby so small against the medical equipment, so impossibly fragile, while she kept one hand on Sergeant's head. The dog hadn't moved. Barely breathing now, just watching the infant with those amber eyes. His mission wasn't finished until the child was safe. "We need to transport now," the lead paramedic called out. Young guy, couldn't be more than 25, but his hands were steady as he secured the warming blankets. "Core temperature is 89 degrees. Another hour out here, double quotes. He didn't finish. Didn't need to." Sarah looked at Sergeant. "You hear that, boy? She's going to make it because of you." The dog's tail twitched once, barely. "But enough." "Ma'am," another voice. "Animal control officer, someone Sarah recognized from joint operations. We need to get him to emergency vet care. He's in bad shape." "Really bad. I'm riding with him," Sarah said. Not a request. They loaded the baby first. Sarah watched the ambulance disappear down the dirt road, lights blazing, then turned to help lift Sergeant onto a stretcher. He was so light. Wrong. A German Shepherd in prime condition should be 70-80 pounds of muscle. This dog felt like 50 pounds of bones and will. The emergency veterinary clinic was 40 minutes away. 40 minutes of Sarah watching Sergeant's chest rise and fall in increasingly shallow movements. 40 minutes of her talking to him about her own K9 partner who'd retired last year, about the baby who would grow up because of his courage, about anything to keep him anchored to consciousness. "We're going to find out what happened to you," she promised. "All of it. Who left that baby? Why you were out there alone. Everything." Sergeant's eyes found hers in the dim light of the vehicle. For a moment, Sarah could have sworn he understood every word. Dr. Elena Vasquez met them at the clinic entrance, her team already prepped and waiting. She took one look at Sergeant, and her expression went professional blank the face medical people make when things are worse than they expected. "K9? She asked, noting the vest. "Reported dead 3 weeks ago," Sarah replied. "But he's been alive, out there, guarding an infant." Elena's eyes widened. "The baby from the news alert?" Word traveled fast. They moved Sergeant to an examination room. Sarah stayed in the corner, out of the way but refusing to leave. She watched Elena's team work for fluids, wound assessment, temperature monitoring. Watched them discover things that made experienced veterinary professionals go quiet. Malnutrition, Elena listed, voice clinical but tight. Severe dehydration, infected lacerations, broken ribs partially healed, frostbite on the paw pads. And she paused, fingers gentle on Sergeant's hind leg. "Old fracture here. Maybe 2 weeks ago. Didn't heal right. He's been walking on a broken leg?" Sarah's voice came out strangled. "More than walking. Based on the muscle development and wear patterns, ... Elena looked up. "This dog has been traveling. Miles. Maybe dozens of miles." The room went silent except for the beep of monitors and Sergeant's labored breathing. "How?" someone asked. Nobody had an answer. Sarah's phone buzzed. "Her captain. Need you at the station. FBI wants to talk. Now." She looked at Sergeant. "At the team working to save him." "I have to go," she told Elena. "But I'm coming back. Promise him I'm coming back." Elena nodded. "Go. We've got him." The police station was chaos. Sarah had barely stepped through the doors when she was pulled into a conference room where people she'd never seen before were setting up laptops and spreading Crime scene photos across the table. Officer Mitchell. A woman in a dark suit extended her hand. FBI credentials glinted under fluorescent lights. Special Agent Rebecca Torres. I need everything you can tell me about tonight. Sarah walked them through it. The call, the woods, finding Sargent and the baby, every detail she could remember. The dog, Agent Torres leaned forward. You're sure about the vest number? K9 to 247, Sargent. Missing 3 weeks. Torres exchanged a look with her partner, an older man who'd been silent until now. He pulled up something on his laptop and turned the screen toward Sarah. A news article. 3 weeks old. Officer killed in rural pursuit crash. Sarah's blood went cold. Officer Marcus Chun, the man said quietly, 32 years old, 8-year veteran, was pursuing suspects in a rural area when his vehicle left the road and went into a ravine. He was found dead at the scene. His K9 sergeant was presumed dead as well. They couldn't locate the body. Assumed it had been thrown from the vehicle. But he wasn't dead, Sarah whispered. No, he wasn't. Torres pulled up another image. A map. The accident happened here, she pointed. About 30 miles from where you found him tonight. 30 miles. Through wilderness, with broken ribs and a fractured leg. Why? Sarah asked. Why would he travel that far? That's what we're trying to figure out. Torres pulled up more photos. The suspects Chun was pursuing that night? They were wanted in connection with a human trafficking operation. Specifically, infant smuggling. The room tilted. The baby, Sarah said. We think so. Based on preliminary evidence, we believe the child was in the suspect's vehicle the night of the crash. Chun must have gotten close enough to spook them. The crash gave them a chance to escape, but in the chaos, they left the baby behind, Sarah finished. Torres nodded. Chun was killed on impact, but Sargent survived. And somehow in the dark, in the woods, with everything broken inside him, double quotes, she paused. He found that baby, and he decided nothing else mattered. Sarah thought about Sargent's eyes in the forest. That desperate barking, the way he positioned his body to shield the infant from the cold. He was keeping his handler's mission alive, she said softly. For 3 weeks, Torres' partner added. No food, no shelter, injuries that should have killed him. But he stayed. Someone else entered the room. Captain Reynolds, Sarah's supervisor, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. Hospital just called, he said. The baby's stable. They think she make a full recovery. His voice caught, she's going to be fine. The relief in the room was palpable. And the dog? Sarah asked. Reynolds hesitated. Sarah didn't wait for permission. She was out of the station and back in her car before anyone could stop her. The captain's uncertain expression burned into her memory. The veterinary clinic looked different in the pre-dawn light, less like an emergency facility and more like a last stand against impossible odds. Sarah found Dr. Vasquez in the recovery ward, studying monitors with the intensity of someone reading bad news in a foreign language. How is he? Elena didn't turn around. Alive, which is more than I expected 2 hours ago. Sarah moved closer. Sargent lay on a padded table, surrounded by equipment that looked too large for his wasted frame. 4 lines snaked into his legs. Bandages covered the infected ear and various wounds. His breathing was steadier now, but still shallow. We've stabilized him, Elena continued, but that's just buying time. The malnutrition alone would take weeks to recover from properly. The infections, the broken bones, the trauma, double quotes. She finally looked at Sarah. I've been a vet for 15 years. I've never seen an animal survive what this dog has been through. But he did survive. He did. The question is whether his body can keep going now that he's finally stopped. Elena adjusted one of the monitors. It's like he was running on pure determination. Now that the adrenaline's gone, now that he knows the baby's safe, his body's trying to shut down. Sarah reached out, let her fingers rest gently on Sargent's head. His fur was cleaner now, matted patches trimmed away, revealing more scars than she'd seen in the dark. You can't give up, she whispered. Not after everything. One amber eye cracked open. Found her. Held. Has he opened his eyes before? Sarah asked. Elena shook her head. First time since we sedated him for treatment. They watched Sargent struggle to keep that eye open, fighting against exhaustion and pain and medication that should have knocked him out cold. His gaze moved slowly around the room, searching. He's looking for the baby, Sarah realized. He doesn't know she's safe, Elena said softly. Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolled through messages until she found what she was looking for, a photo the hospital had sent. The baby, cleaned up, wrapped in warm blankets, sleeping peacefully in a NICU incubator. Healthy pink skin, steady monitors. A miracle captured in pixels. She held the phone where Sergeant could see it. Boy, look, she's okay. You saved her. You can rest now. Sergeant's eye focused on the screen. Sarah could have sworn his breathing steadied, just a fraction. Then the eye slowly closed. But this time, it didn't look like defeat. It looked like peace. That's not scientifically possible, Elena murmured. Nothing about tonight is scientifically possible. The story broke that morning like a wildfire through dry brush. K9 Hero Guard's abandoned baby for 3 weeks. Every news outlet in the state picked it up within hours. By afternoon, it was national. By evening, international. Sarah's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Interview requests, questions from reporters, messages from people she hadn't talked to in years. But she ignored all of it, staying at the clinic, watching Sergeant's monitors. They might change if she looked away. Dr. Vasquez brought her coffee at some point. You should go home. Sleep. We'll call if anything changes. I told him I'd come back. Elena smiled sadly. He's sedated. He doesn't know you're here. I know I'm here. They sat in silence for a while, watching Sergeant breathe. His chest rose and fell with the mechanical assistance of the equipment, but at least it was rising. At least he was still fighting. The FBI called, Elena said eventually. They found the suspects, the ones who left the baby. Sarah's jaw tightened. Where? Abandoned warehouse near the Canadian border. They were trying to disappear. Elena's voice went cold. They confessed. Said they panicked after the crash, grabbed what they could and ran. Left the baby because she was too much trouble to carry. Jesus. They didn't know the dog survived. Didn't know anything until they saw the news this morning. Elena paused. Agent Torres said when they showed the suspects the photos of Sergeant guarding the baby, one of them started crying. Said if they'd known the dog was alive, they would have come back for the child. Bullshit, Sarah said flatly. They left a 6-month-old baby in October woods. They knew exactly what they were doing. I know. But for what it's worth, the baby's family has been found. Real family, not the traffickers. Her parents didn't even know she'd been taken. She was stolen from a hospital nursery 3 months ago. They thought she was dead. Sarah closed her eyes. 3 months. She's been gone 3 months. And Sergeant brought her home. A monitor beeped. Both women looked up sharply, but it was just a minor fluctuation. Sergeant's heart rate had increased slightly, still weak, but stronger than an hour ago. Is that good? Sarah asked. Elena studied the readout. His body's responding to the fluids and nutrients. It's fighting, she smiled. He's fighting. The story evolved over the next few days into something bigger than anyone expected. The hospital released photos of the baby now, identified as Emma Richardson, stolen at 2 months old from St. Mary's Hospital in Portland. Her parents, Daniel and Claire Richardson, gave a press conference that left grown reporters openly crying. We thought we'd never see her again, Claire said, voice shaking, holding Emma like she might disappear again at any moment. And then this ... this incredible, impossible bull quote she couldn't finish. Daniel did. Sergeant saved our daughter's life. He kept her alive when we couldn't, when no one else could. He looked directly at the camera. If he survives, when he survives, we want to meet him. We need to thank him. The veterinary clinic was flooded with calls. Donations pouring in for Sergeant's treatment. Flowers, cards, toys for him to play with when he recovered. People camped outside, keeping vigil, holding signs. #Sergeant Strong and K9 Heroes Never Quit. Sarah watched it all from inside, barely leaving the recovery ward. She'd taken emergency leave from the department. They'd granted it immediately, understanding that some bonds transcended policy. On the third night, something changed. Sarah had dozed off in the chair beside Sergeant's bed when a cold, wet nose pressed against her hand. She jerked awake. Sergeant was sitting up, actually sitting, weak and trembling, but up, looking at her with those amber eyes that had seen too much and decided to keep going anyway. Elena, Sarah called, trying not to startle him. Elena, he's awake! The vet appeared within seconds, eyes wide. That's not possible. He shouldn't have the strength to... But Sergeant ignored her, focused entirely on Sarah. His tail attempted a wag. It looked painful and exhausted and absolutely beautiful. "Hey, boy," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face without permission. "Hey!" Sergeant leaned his head against her hand, the gesture so trusting it broke something open in her chest. Elena was checking monitors, taking vitals, murmuring medical observations that Sarah barely heard. All she could focus on was this dog who'd survived the impossible for 3 weeks and was now choosing to survive another day. "His vitals are stabilizing," Elena said, wonder in her voice. "Respiratory rate improving, heart rate steady. It's like he just ... decided to get better. He knows Emma's safe," Sarah said. "He can finally rest." But even as she said it, Sergeant's eyes were alert, scanning the room, still on guard, still protecting. The mission had changed, but the warrior remained. Recovery, they learned, was not a straight line. Sergeant would have good days where he could stand, take a few shaky steps, even eat solid food. Then he'd have setbacks, infections flaring, wounds refusing to heal properly, his body remembering it had been pushed far beyond any reasonable limit. Through it all, Sarah stayed. She'd taken a leave of absence from the force, moved into a small apartment near the clinic, spent every day helping Dr. Vasquez and her team with Sergeant's care, physical therapy, medication schedules, the slow, frustrating work of teaching a broken body how to be whole again. "You don't have to do this," Elena told her one morning, 2 weeks into recovery. "We have staff. You've got your own life." Sarah looked at Sergeant, who was attempting to walk on the therapy treadmill, his movements stilted but determined. "He doesn't have anyone else. His handler's gone. He's not official K9 anymore. He's just not alone. He's not alone. He's got you." That stopped Sarah, made her look at the truth she'd been avoiding. She'd lost her own K9 partner Rex to cancer a year ago. Hadn't wanted another dog, couldn't face it. But watching Sergeant fight for every breath, every step, every moment of life, it had cracked something open in her that she thought was permanently sealed. "I'm not trying to replace Rex," she said quietly. "I know, but maybe Sergeant's not trying to replace Marcus either. Maybe you're both just ... double quotes Elena searched for the word ... finding a reason to keep going." The media attention hadn't faded. If anything, it intensified. The Richardson family visited on week 3. Emma was healthy now, rosy-cheeked and babbling, no memory of the cold woods or the desperate dog who'd saved her. But when Claire brought her into Sergeant's recovery room, something incredible happened. Sergeant, who'd been wary of most visitors, immediately relaxed. His tail wagged slow, careful, but genuine. When Claire knelt down, letting Emma sit on the floor near him, Sergeant's whole body seemed to exhale. He sniffed the baby carefully. Emma giggled, reached out with chubby hands, grabbed his fur. Any other dog might have pulled away, but Sergeant just lay down, positioning himself so Emma could use him as a pillow. "Oh my God," Claire whispered, tears streaming. "He remembers her, or she remembers him," Daniel said, voice thick. "Look." Emma had curled against Sergeant's chest, one hand twisted in his fur, making soft, contented sounds. The same way a baby might sleep against a parent's chest. Safe, protected, home. The photo taken that day, Emma sleeping against the dog who'd guarded her through the worst night of her life, went viral within hours. But for everyone in that room, the clicks and shares didn't matter. What mattered was the healing happening right in front of them. "We want to do something," Daniel said, looking at Sarah. "For him. For you. The medical bills, the care, whatever he needs, the donations have covered everything," Sarah said. "People have been incredibly generous. Then let us set up a fund. For K9 medical care, for retired police dogs. In Marcus's name and Sergeant's." Daniel's voice was firm. "Our daughter is alive because of them. We can't repay that, but we can honor it." Sarah looked at Sergeant, still content with Emma sleeping against his side. "I think they'd both like that. Physical therapy was brutal." Sergeant's broken leg had healed wrong. The old fracture had left him with a permanent limp. The broken ribs had mended, but left scar tissue that made breathing difficult. The malnutrition had done long-term damage to his joints, his organs, his muscle mass. "He'll never be a working K9 again," Elena said bluntly. "His body can't take that level of physical demand." "I know," Sarah replied. "That's not what he needs to be. What he needed," she'd realized, was to be loved, to be cared for. To know that his worth wasn't measured in missions completed or criminals caught, but in the simple act of existing. She started taking him home on overnight visits. Her apartment wasn't much One bedroom, secondhand furniture, nothing fancy. But she'd set up a corner for him. Soft bed, toys, bowls with his name engraved on them. The first night, Sargent stood in the doorway for 10 minutes, just looking around, like he couldn't believe this space was for him. "Come on, boy," Sarah encouraged. "It's safe here." "I promise." He took one tentative step inside, then another. Sniffed every corner, every surface, memorizing the space. When he finally lay down on the bed she'd bought him, he looked up at her with an expression that transcended species. "Is this really mine?" "Yeah," Sarah said, voice cracking. "Yeah, buddy. It's really yours." That night, she woke to find Sargent had moved from his bed to lay beside hers, close enough to touch but not crowding, still on guard, still protecting. Old habits, she supposed, died hard. The FBI closed the case in spectacular fashion. The trafficking ring was larger than anyone had anticipated. Dozens of families reunited with stolen children. Multiple arrests across 3 states. Agent Torres gave Sarah the details over coffee at a diner near the clinic. Marcus's pursuit that night? Torres said. It broke open the whole operation. If he hadn't gotten so close, if Sargent hadn't survived to protect Emma, she shook her head. We might never have found them all. Marcus would be proud, Sarah said softly. His family wants to meet Sargent. His widow, his daughter. If you think he's ready, Sarah thought about it. About the weight Sargent still carried, the way he sometimes stared at nothing, lost in memories she couldn't access. I think he needs that too. The meeting was arranged for the following week. Marcus's widow, Jennifer, brought their daughter, 8-year-old Lily. The little girl had drawn pictures of her dad and Sargent crayon images of a man and his dog. Forever partners, forever heroes. When Sargent saw them, something shifted in his eyes. Recognition, maybe? Or permission. Jennifer knelt down, tears already falling. Hey, Sargent, remember me? His tail wagged. Slow at first, then faster. He pressed his head against her hands, making soft sounds that weren't quite whines, weren't quite cries. He missed you, Jennifer whispered. He's been waiting, Lily approached carefully, showing Sargent the pictures. I drew you and Daddy because you're both heroes. Sargent licked her face, gentle as a whisper. They stayed for hours, sharing stories about Marcus, laughing and crying in equal measure. And slowly, Sarah watched Sargent begin to let go. Not forgetting, never forgetting, but accepting, moving forward. When they left, Jennifer hugged Sarah tight. Take care of him. He's special. I know, Sarah said. I promise. 3 months after that October night, Sargent was officially released from medical care. He would always have the limp, would always carry scars, but he was strong enough to live a full life. Sarah adopted him without hesitation, filled out the paperwork in Dr. Vasquez's office, while Sargent dozed in a patch of sunlight. You two are going to be okay, Elena said softly. Yeah, Sarah agreed. We are. A month later, the governor's office called. They wanted to present Sargent with a formal commendation. The ceremony was held at the state capitol. Hundreds attended officers, families, people moved by Sargent's story. Emma's family was there. Jennifer Chun, Marcus's widow, stepped forward to pin the medal on Sargent's collar. My husband loved this dog, she said through tears. And this dog kept his promise. He protected the innocent. He never gave up. He saved a life. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Sarah returned to the force in a new role K-9 training. Sargent came with her, teaching by example what dedication truly meant. They visited schools on weekends. Sarah would tell children, this dog didn't save Emma because he was ordered to. He did it because he knew it was right. Emma's family visited often. The little girl would declare, that's my puppy, and dress Sargent in princess hats. He endured it with patient grace. He is hers, Sarah told Claire Richardson. He always will be. 5 years passed. The Chen Sargent Memorial K-9 Training Center had trained over 100 dogs and handlers. Agent Torres visited on the anniversary with news. 43 children rescued because of Marcus's pursuit and Sargent's survival. 43 families reunited. Emma, now 5, brought Sargent a drawing she'd made a big dog and small baby under a tree. I made this for you because you saved me. You were very brave. She hugged his neck. I love you, Sargent. That evening, Sarah sat on her porch. Sargent lay beside her chair, chin on her foot. You know what I realized? She said quietly. That night, you didn't just save Emma, you saved me too. Showed me that love doesn't die, it just finds new forms. Sergeant's tail thumped. She thought about that desperate October night 5 years ago. The impossible survival, the baby who lived, the dog who refused to quit. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. Sergeant looked up at her with those amber eyes, understanding, gratitude, peace. Sarah scratched behind his scarred ear. Rest now, warrior. You've earned it. The stars scattered across the October sky like broken glass. Beautiful, sharp, eternal. And in the quiet of that evening, with a rescued dog breathing steadily beside her and a saved child sleeping safely miles away, Sarah understood the truth that Sergeant had known all along. Some bonds transcend duty. Some missions are worth any cost. And some heroes don't wear badges, they wear fur and carry hearts too big for their broken bodies. That night, the dog didn't just save a life. He saved hope.